For you, you know many things, including elections. It's vote once, not twice, right?
Oh, my God. What's so amazing is, unlike you, I am not a lawyer, but when I can Google that something is against a law, and I can find the law, and then I can even Google whether the law that it breaks is a felony, you've broken a big, bad law. I mean, the notion that this is where we are is staggering. And the question I keep asking is, what do we do? I mean, this is who he is, but what do we do?
This is who he is, and he can say what he wants. He has that freedom. But you're right, and we're going to get into this later in the program. When the Attorney General of the United States backs that up, then you have the government supporting that urge to break the law, as you put it, Nicole. It's real stuff. Always nice to see you, neighbor.
Nice to see you, my friend. Have a good show.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Always good to see you. Nicole Wallace, welcome to The Beat. I am Ari Melber, and I want to thank you for joining us as we track these stories now. Joe Biden talking to Jacob Blake during his Wisconsin trip today. That's after Donald Trump snubbed the Blake family. New York police officers suspended after a very controversial death of a restrained man in their custody. Also, new warnings of Russian meddling as Bill Barr states legal falsehoods in a new interview defending Trump. We begin right now with Joe Biden making this rare trip during a pandemic. He went to Kenosha, Wisconsin, a deliberate contrast to Trump's visit this week, where the president snubbed the family of Jacob Blake. But Biden meeting with them. And where Trump emphasized property damage, Biden emphasizing damage to human lives. Where Trump outlined a potential legal defense for that young man indicted for murdering 2 protesters, Biden flatly condemning that shooting and all violence on the ground. Now, the emotional meeting with the Blakes, who are still reeling from when police shot Jacob Blake 7 times in the back, what you see here served as something of a shadow president moment. Joe Biden showing through what was an hour-and-a-half discussion with them and community members how he would confront these problems as president. Now, today, of course, what you're looking at here was Joe Biden as a private citizen and candidate, listening, thinking, engaging. But Biden also spoke by phone to Mr. Blake, who is recovering in his hospital bed.
Had an opportunity to spend some time with Jacob on the phone. He's out of ICU. We spoke for about 15 minutes. He talked about how nothing was going to defeat him, how whether he walked again or not, he was not going to give up. What I came away with was the overwhelming sense of resilience and optimism that they have about the kind of response they're getting.
That is the human side, the recovery, the perseverance. Now, what about justice and policy? Well, in just a few moments on tonight's show, we're actually going to hear directly from the Blake family representative, civil rights lawyer Ben Crump, about meeting with Biden, about their view of what justice requires. On policy, Biden saying there is racial injustice across America, while Trump argues the problem is actually, in his view, the protesters. Now, most Americans do know there are sharp contrasts between these 2 candidates. But I'll tell you tonight, this Wisconsin debate is putting those differences into sharp relief.
I am not pessimistic. I'm optimistic about the opportunity if we seize it.
These are not acts of peaceful protest, but really domestic terror.
Fear doesn't solve problems. Only hope does.
We've seen tremendous violence, and we will put it out very, very quickly if given the chance.
A significant portion of the police are decent people, but there's a lot of bad folks in every organization.
We must give far greater support to our law enforcement.
We're joined now to kick things off by Professor Jason Johnson and NBC News' Janelle Ross, who's actually live in Kenosha, Wisconsin, outside that very church where Biden attended the community meeting. Jason, what do you see in this contrast, and what will Americans see going into this election?
They're going to see the difference between a president who stokes violence and terrorism and a president who actually goes in to try to control a situation. Joe Biden, it's not just that he met with Jacob Blake's family. He listened Like Michelle Obama said 2 weeks ago during the convention, he's a man who actually listens, which is part of being the president of the United States. Donald Trump didn't just go there and refuse to speak to Jacob Blake's family. Remember his reason why. He didn't want lawyers on the phone. Why are you concerned? You're the president of the United States. You got Bill Barr. But you have one candidate who actually cares about how people live. And he also spoke to business people. He was also concerned about the community as a whole, and another who is only stoking racial violence and destruction. So I hope America sees this, but I hope they also recognize that this manifests itself in policy. One thing I'll say really quick, this is also the morning that the Biden campaign rolled out their new commercial, We're Listening, where he talked about police reform. He and Harris said, we're not just visiting these places, but here's how we're going to change the dynamic with policing in America.
Yeah, I mean, you say it like that. We're in it now. I mean, Janelle, you're out there. You've been an analyst, a reporter, an expert for us, sometimes in a Zoom studio room. Now, obviously, out there with what this community is going through. And many Democrats liked other candidates. Many activists had criticisms of Joe Biden, including his role in the incarceration 94 bill. I'm curious what you saw, both substantively and politically, in him listening and in being there, being on the ground today.
I think there are a wide range of responses to the vice president's presence here. There are a number of people who were very happy to see him or felt that it was absolutely necessary that he come, given that the president had been here and made such a distinct effort or perhaps show of avoiding the Blake family. I think that the vice president's approach or the former vice president's approach, certainly for those people, was very welcome. There are also people here who I think have a lot of grave concern about the serious things happening with policing in America becoming a sort of political football, and assuring that in the effort to politically appeal to moderate voters, that the Democratic candidate is not going to avoid making the kinds of commitments that might be necessary legislatively to actually make changes in communities like Kenosha and others around the country.
All really important points of nuance there. Before we bring in Ben Crump, who, as I mentioned, is representing the Blake family, there's a bit more national business I want to get to with you, Jason, and that is Governor Cuomo, who has been a very visible Democrat on coronavirus and other issues, speaking in a way that I think if Donald Trump spoke this way or his allies did, would earn rightful concern and condemnation. There's plenty of rhetoric in politics, but he certainly comes close to making it sound like Donald Trump might have a, quote, bodyguard and army-related security issue if he wants to visit a state in the country. The president, like anyone, can go anywhere. I say that as a setup to listening to Governor Cuomo hitting back on Trump's threat to defund certain cities, which he doesn't really have the authority to do. Take a look.
He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York. He can't have enough bodyguards to walk through New York City. People don't want to have anything to do with him. It's more of the same from him. It's cheap, it's political, it's gratuitous, and it's illegal. But it is another attempt to kill New York City.
Jason, tensions are high out there for all the reasons we know. We don't need a president defending an accused murderer, according to the authorities in Wisconsin. Do we need other politicians, in whatever party they may be, bringing up whether someone needs bodyguards?
Here's the thing, Ari. I think to me and you and to a lot of us in the press, we may hear this and say, oh, my gosh, we're concerned. I think to people who may be New Yorkers, this rhetoric may not locally hit quite the same way. I mean, look, yes, Cuomo could make some nicer ways to express his concern, but also, look, he's a governor, and he's saying this president has consistently attacked me, he has attacked my state, he has attacked my citizens, he has threatened not to send equipment here. If this was a regular way for Governor Cuomo to speak, I would be the first person to say, hey, look, that's unnecessary, nobody needs to walk around with bodyguards. But as a moment of frustration after 6 or 7 months of the president of the United States basically attacking his state, I can accept it. I'll allow it in this particular situation.
And Janelle, before I lose you out there, I did want to put up one interesting statistic we have here. You know, polling is early, it moves a lot, but it's striking that the gap, whatever it may be, between Biden and Trump in preference is smaller than the gap over whether Americans simply feel Donald Trump keeps them safe. His ads make that argument, as you know. But here it is. 50% of people say Trump makes them feel less safe. Only 35% say more safe. As you are out there, I'm curious how that relates to anything you're hearing from your reporting in Wisconsin.
I will say, I certainly have talked to many people who expressed a lot of concern about a general level of chaos that seems to be developing in the country that they do attribute to the president. I also, however, talked to people here who were 2016 Trump supporters, who intend to be 2020 Trump supporters, and who really find a lot of comfort in the idea that he has a particularly strong hand in leading the country or in leading government and is willing to break rules. So, you know, I think that I would say what I found is very much consistent with the polling that you were describing. But it's also important to remember that right here in Kenosha County went to Donald Trump by 255 votes in 2016. So the idea that people may have a variety of opinions and be closely split is probably remains relevant today.
Appreciate you reminding us of the diversity in every sense, a diversity of people, diversity of views. Wisconsin, a state many Democrats have carried until Donald Trump on the recent map. Janelle, always appreciate your nuance. And Jason, we're going to get more from you later this hour. We turn now, as promised, to a very newsworthy guest at a serious time, civil rights attorney Ben Crump. He knows many of these issues well. He's also the representative of the Blake family in the room with what we showed you earlier today with the Biden meeting. Thank you for making time. What did you see or experience that we